Buddhism, if you don't really understand what the Eightfold Path means, and it's also the stream of the Dhamma, when we talk about entering the stream, for example, we're talking about becoming this path. It seems logical that if we're to practice in this way, we should probably understand what it is and how it works. This actually took me years to really piece together, and so I like to really bring the whole retreat together towards the end and kind of piece it all in together so that you understand this is actually what you've been practicing. Okay, what a journey. Day 7. Whew. Ayo. This is going fast now. Huh? And now we've seen quite a lot, and in 6 days we're able to talk a lot about Dhamma, see a lot of material, understandings, perspectives. And this is about the time in the retreat where I like to take it all in and wrap it all around this very important topic in the Buddha's teaching. Apparently it's quite well known. It's called the Bharat, using my language. Whew. Yay! Eight-spoked path, the Eightfold Path, yeah. Because apparently that's kind of important. When you read about Buddhism, usually that's kind of the first thing you hear about. And for me, it was always a bit of a mystery. It's really interesting. The Eightfold Path was like, yeah, okay, I get it. Like, I understand the concept behind, like the virtue and right effort and, right mindfulness, right concentration. To be really honest, I was practicing for a few years and I didn't really feel like I actually really understood what the Eightfold Path meant. Because this right effort thing, I was like, okay, bringing up wholesome states, abandoning unwholesome ones. Because when I was practicing, I was told to basically look at my nostrils, breathing, and or just pointing my awareness onto one thing in particular. And I really didn't really associate with, what that right effort was, or I couldn't really understand. And then right mindfulness, I thought, yeah, it makes sense, but I didn't really feel like I was practicing that in any kind of special way or anything. Maybe in like a very distant, remote kind of way. But then I was reading this sutta, like I shared with you on day 2, the second day. And we had this exploration on the wholesome states and unwholesome states, which was at the core of the Buddha's awakening, and how he actually started to behave in a particular way with each of them, so make more of the wholesome and abandon the unwholesome, and how that brought up what we also call the 7 factors of enlightenment in his mind, which is the sequence we read every morning, natural collectedness. And his mind was collected just by doing that. And so I'm reading these suttas, and I'm like, okay, so anyways, I don't really feel like I'm doing that. Not like I'm a bad person, but I don't feel like my meditation practice is addressing that. And then I read other suttas like this. Because I will teach you this wise collectedness, samma samadhi, or what is translated as right concentration nowadays. I will teach you the wise collectedness of the awakened ones, of the noble ones, with its supports and requisites. And what is this wise collectedness? That is wise understanding, wise intention, wise speech, wise behavior, wise lifestyle or livelihood, wise practice, and wise presence of mind. And so the Buddha is saying here, this is what samadhi is, or right samadhi. Tonight we'll be going through the Eightfold Path, the Eight-Spoke Path, all together, and we'll have this little interaction together, exploring. And it's on page 114, yes, and we will start at 116 at the bottom here in wise understanding. And so if you still have a pen close by or something to take notes, I can also share with you my own translation and the classical translation, just so that we're clear on what those mean. And in the end, the Eightfold Path is really the meditation. Bhante would always say, I even wrote a book on it. It's called Life is Meditation, Meditation is Life. And he would put a huge emphasis on that, actually, that the meditation it's not just sitting meditation. It's also called bhavana. And bhavana is wholesome mental development. And that is all the time. And so the Eightfold Path, or the Eight-Spoked Path, like I translated, is like the ultimate vehicle of the mind. So, and it's not a one-pointed thing. It's a very vast and far-reaching thing, and very wise also. And it touches every corner of our lives. And so here, I usually translate right view, the first one, as wise understanding. So just so that we're clear. Wise attitude, also I call it wise intention, but that is right intention. Wise speech is right speech. Wise behavior is right action. Wise living is right livelihood. Wise practice is right effort. Wise awareness or wise presence of mind, depending on how I feel, is right mindfulness. And wise meditation is, sometimes I call it wise collectedness, is also right concentration. And I'll explain maybe a little bit more as we go why I choose these terms. But I like to, the word samadhi is a pretty big word. It's hard to really give it a one name that is the equivalent in English, because first of all, in English we don't have that kind of vocabulary. We don't have very spiritual vocabulary. So like in Indic languages, and they still use a lot of those terms, and so it's a little bit easier. But here sometimes samadhi I translate it as just like more like a general meditation kind of term. And sometimes when the Buddha, I feel like he's being more specific about, it's actually that collectedness of mind, that kind of quality of the mind, rather than more like the bigger general term. I'll call it wise collectedness. And so, monks and nuns, what is this wise understanding? Someone wants to venture, be brave, or be smart and read?
Knowing what is tension.
Knowing what is tension, yeah. And what would that usually be called? Yes, the Four Noble Truths. Here we are, diving deep, right in the very beginning. And what would tension be translated as usually? Suffering, knowing what is suffering, yeah. And then we have knowing the cause of tension, yeah. What causes it? We talked about it last night. We had a pretty long exposition about that. What is the cause of suffering or the tension? Wanting or what? Yes, dissatisfaction, craving, yes. Tanha, yes. And the third one is knowing. The release from tension, yes. That there is something, there is a cessation, there is a release from it. It exists, yes. And knowing the way to release the tension. And this is also sometimes understood as the path. And so personally I like to translate the Four Noble Truths in a very practical, applicable way. That is, really in your meditation, if you've paid attention to the 6 R's, which I hope everybody's been doing, you've been just basically practicing the Four Noble Truths. Noticing that there is tension, recognizing. So that's why I put a lot of emphasis on noticing the distractions bring tension. Because the distractions have a little bit of tanha. And so when we understand that and we see it in that way, it's not just about relaxing. Because if you were to just relax without understanding that principle, it actually doesn't lead to the same thing. And so this is where we start to, somebody will just like, just relax everything that comes, but then they'll hit a wall. Because they haven't actually understood what is causing that tension and why they're relaxing. It's just like, just trying to calm the mind, and it works. It works for a while, but then the meditation starts, it stops. It stops to go deeper. And then knowing the release from tension, that's the release, obviously, and relaxed step. And knowing the way. And so that's the whole of the path, with also bringing up the joy and repeating that also. Very good. And in another discourse, the Buddha says this. This is just a side note, but I think it's quite interesting. He says that this wise understanding is to understand that there are things which are given. And you have to tell me afterwards, what do you think he means by all of this? Okay. There are things which are given, which are offered, sacrificed. There is right and wrong, and the result of actions. This world exists, and so does the other world. There is mother and father, and beings who are reborn spontaneously. Now, you don't have to know exactly this one. It's a bit of a tricky one. This world does exist with its monks and Brahmins, who practice properly, and who explain this world and the world after by their direct experience. What do you think he's talking about here?
Samsara?
Samsara, yes, he's alluding, yes, but there were a lot of different kinds of views at the time of the Buddha. Like, if you just kill people, it doesn't matter. There's no actual consequence. If you steal things, nobody knows. Doesn't actually, there's no connection. If you're good enough, you'll get away with it. And I mean, these things are, it's really easy to believe that, because it's really hard to prove that there would be any kind of law behind this, which is, yeah, exactly. So there are things which are given, which are offered, sacrificed. There is right and wrong in the result of action. Just this means that because at the time of the Buddha there was, like there is today, there are nihilistic views also, which that basically whatever you do, it doesn't matter. There's no result of action in the end. And the Buddha said clearly that this was not true. His way to see that and to claim this is a bit, because he saw many lifetimes and many worlds and saw that direct correlation with a lot of beings and a lot of his own past lives. But he said that at least to put faith in this, even if you don't really know, it's a very safe investment, because if people that place their faith in nihilism, for example, you can't expect them to behave in any kind of wholesome way because it doesn't matter. So at least even if you don't believe in past lives and next lives and things like that, you can at least protect yourself in this one from really bad consequences. Anyhow, so he says that right view or wise understanding is also understanding that there is the law of action and the result of action. We call this Kamma vipaka in Pali. Very good.
This seems to be the version of the mundane, like versus
Yes.
the other aspect of the whole.
Yes. So this is called the Vibhanga Sutta, which is the explanation of the path. It's also found at the end of the satipatthana Sutta, which is the greater exposition on the 4 foundations of mindfulness. This is a pretty lengthy title. In the Digha Nikaya, the long discourses of the Buddha. That's also where it's found. I think they just extracted it, and this is in the Samyutta Nikaya, the connected discourses. Another basket, another collection. But the one I just cited from was the one you're talking about. So that's from the Great 40, the middle length discourses 117. And I started the talk with that teaching, in fact. So when he explains what is wise collectedness of the noble ones or the awakened ones, and he says all of the factors of the path, it's that teaching. And so tonight we're kind of actually gonna go in and out of each. The Grade 40 is amazing. It's one of the best descriptions of the path, but it's a bit complicated. So I'm just gonna make it. I think this one is a lot more accessible for everybody, and actually this is the first sutta that I translated, and of course I've changed it over time because it wasn't was a work in progress for a few years, but it was actually the sutta that really brought me to translate myself, because I really wanted to understand, and I'm not kidding when I was saying that it was really at the core of my trying to understand the Eightfold Path, was at the core of my practice. And this is why started translating. In fact, this is the first one. So I'm not kidding. Because it seems so important, like in Buddhism, if you don't really understand what the Eightfold Path means, and it's also the stream of the Dhamma. When we talk about entering the stream, for example, we're talking about basically becoming this path, like going in there. And it seems logical that if we're to practice in this way, we should probably understand what it is and how it works. And so this actually took me years to really piece together, and so I like to really bring the whole retreat together towards the end and kind of piece it all in together so that you understand this is actually what you've been practicing. And what is wise attitude or right intention, monks and nuns? Yes, the attitude of, and the attitude of, great. So usually this would be the intention to relinquish, or is that? Renounce, yeah, renunciation, which sounds very monastic, but I like to keep it in a very practical way. And for me, in some ways it does mean to renounce, or it could mean that very well, but in another way it just means to not keep things, to not hold on to things, and to let them go. This is where I take the two wings to awakening, this idea of there's two sides to this path, one of letting go and calming down, relaxing, and the other one that is an upward movement of uplifting, which is abhyapada, non-anger. And what would we say in English, in contemporary English, for non-anger? There's many states, yeah, but did I hear love? Yes, loving kindness, love, metta, karuna. I just said it. Yeah, upeka, mudita. So for those who don't know Pali, compassion, sympathetic joy, or joy, just anything that uplifts the mind, that upward movement. Because the more I also dug into the teaching, the more I discovered that the Buddha is literally talking about these two things all the time. That's basically what is behind everything he's teaching, is to let go, relax, not hold, and then also to cultivate the mind, to bring it up, to feel that joy all the way till the end. And we also have generosity that fits in the first one. So it's all coming into this. We start with wise understanding, and this is kind of this is like the blueprint. And dependent origination, which we spoke about, is in that wise understanding, obviously. But now we start to kind of go into the field, is what I like to call it. So we have a few fields on the path, and I'll give you the full analogy at the end. But the first one closest to us, and this is what we've been doing on this retreat, is that we work at the level of intention, which is the deepest in our mind. And then from the mind, which is intention, or sometimes sankappo or sankappa is translated as thoughts also, either intention or thought. And so at the level of thought, level of mind, that's where kind of the ground control is. That's where everything happens. But the closest thing to this is speech. And so what is wise speech? Is abstaining from false speech, abstaining from unkind speech, and abstaining from senseless talk. That's a good one. gossip, that's another. And so that's not easy. It sounds easy, but it's not. And speech is a very tricky thing, and in fact, since it's so close to the mind, that's where we notice a lot of tendencies in ourselves, also in other people, of course, but in ourselves. But because that bridge is the bridge to the mind, it's a direct bridge. So, and it's not as coarse as physical actions also. So it's easy to come out. Very quick. And now we're going a little bit further into the field and a little bit bigger actions, bigger consequences. What is wise behavior or right action? It is abstaining from taking what is not given, and abstaining from sexual misconduct. Yes, and now we start to have, you're starting to see what we're talking about here with the speech and with actions. We're speaking of the virtues. And the virtues we take every morning. And one of the reasons why I want to keep them like that, because it's a very traditional thing. You know, you go to the temple on Sunday and you go take the panchasil, the 5 virtues. In Buddhist countries, that's what happens. But I like to, because in this context, I find that as soon as you come out of a Buddhist country, then it's not as well known. And the goal in the morning is just to also repeat them, to refresh them, and to remember them. Because we're on retreat, we have this little routine, but after the retreat, it's likely you're not gonna really read that every morning. So my goal in keeping this is that, well, Bhante used to do that, so it's kind of a running tradition in our practice. But also I keep it because I like that it's being refreshed every morning, and we remember that actually this is very important in our lives. These virtues, one of the things that happens as we go deeper into this path is that we can't really break these 5 very basic virtues, or 4 at this point. Because killing living beings would just feel terrible inside. It would not, because we've been developing loving kindness, compassion. It's just impossible to just go and, if you're really devoted to this practice, you're not going to be able to do this. And if you do it, you'll notice that it really disturbs your mind. And the bigger the animal usually is, the bigger impact and imprint it has on your mind. I remember there was a phase of my life where I wanted to kind of like hunt, for example, for myself. And I tried to hunt a porcupine, and I had a bow and arrow. That was in a canoe expedition, and I really didn't know much. And so I tried, and I injured it. And I actually felt so terrible inside. Like, I didn't know anything about Buddhism. I didn't know anything. That was way before that. And I felt so bad, like inside me, like I couldn't, like I was sweaty and I was like trembling and I was like cold sweats, and I was like, no, this is this is not good. Like, I can't do this. And I realized that if I were to like actually go further into these actions, I would have to like kind of blind myself in a certain way to protect, to not feel this. Because really, in actual reality, that's how I felt for doing that. But if I wanted to hunt and actually kill, I would have had to like make myself like a pretty thick covering, and that would have probably deeply distorted my perception of reality in my day-to-day life, disconnecting me from a lot of emotional connections, which are very important and subtle sometimes. And so this goes pretty deep. And when I started to read, because before I encountered Buddhism, I encountered Hinduism, and I started to read the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali and the Bhagavad Gita, which were both my Bibles for a long time when I was a yogi. And and I read in the Yoga Sutras actually I quite liked it, the way that it was described. It was quite well said. What kind of result is to be expected or when you hold virtues and you don't kill. And I started noticing, like I would meditate, for example, in the forest, and because I took the precepts, I took the virtues to not kill and not harm any living beings, like birds would land on me, or like they would actually, like animals would come close to me. And I just started to notice this, like they just knew, they just knew that I was harmless. I wasn't gonna do anything to them. So of course, not all animals know that. Like these damn kangaroos, they don't see that I just want to pet them. But yeah. So, but some animals will do, and a good indicator is when you have squirrels. Squirrels come in crawling on you when you're meditating. That's squirrels sketchy. And they get scared pretty easily, so they usually don't come. But yeah, it happened, and it happened to me. But then, like some people, when they're like pretty excited about how they're like discovering the virtues and meditation, and they're like, yeah, I got this squirrel coming on me the other day, or like this bird came, and so actually all of these things start to happen when we hold the virtues. And if you're careful and if you're looking in the right way, you can actually notice these small things starting to happen. And it's the same thing with stealing and telling lies. When we stop saying even white lies, or even things that would be profitable a little bit, but in the long run, it actually really weighs on the mind. It's really heavy, and it becomes really complicated. And actually, like, because if you don't say something, if you don't say the truth, then you'll have to cover it up again, and then again, and then it's always gonna be like crooked. It's never gonna be straight, and that's actually taking a lot of your energy. It's you can tell, like, people's minds and eyes, they're like, it's not straight. In their mind, it's not straight. It's not truthful. But when you see it's straight, you can tell. And just don't do that to yourself. Life is just so much better like this, like in truth. And so you don't have to hide anything, and you don't feel bad about whatever you've said, or you don't have anything on your heart. And stealing, of course, is just it's a bit. It works in the same ways. You take something and then you have it, right? But then you can't really like say like, hey man, look at this, I got this the other day. It's like, no, you stole it. So you don't want to tell anybody that you got this thing. So it's actually, it's not a good gamble. It's not a good investment. It's just not gonna, and stealing in any kind of way that could be like you're taking something, but also just like, just taking something that isn't yours. And so that's why just living with little and content is actually so blissful. And so and these little things, like for me, the beginning of my spiritual journey, when I was a yogi, traveling in my van and doing yoga and meditating, and national parks on the Pacific West Coast, and starting to kind of tune in with the Dhamma and all the beautiful things that I was reading, and I was getting rid of my things, and in the spirit of letting go or renunciation, because I'd made the choice that I wanted to be a yogi, or I didn't know that what it was to be a monk at that point. So my only image was that of a yogi. So that's what I aimed for. And I started giving up all of my things, and the happiness that I got from this is like, it doesn't have any words, you know. It's like just remembering it now is like I have shivers in my spine. And for me, I was music was a big part of my life. I was a guitar player, and I had well, I mean, I've done a lot of music, and I had this really good Martin guitar, really pretty expensive one, and it was at the point where I was like, you know, I'm taking the spiritual path, and I don't need these things anymore, and even my surfboard. So that was a big renunciation there, and and I actually the day that I decided, I was in California, and I was actually house sitting a house on the hillside. Just above the redwoods, and I would go down and meditate in the redwoods, and there was this small town, and I was having a retreat by myself all winter, and I decided that it was time to give my guitar, and I just went into town to that guitar store. I just thought, you know, I don't know, I just want to give it away, and I don't know what's gonna happen. And I walked in the store, and this lady was actually trying guitars for a young child. Well, for just a child that was on the streets and very poor, and just was trying to she didn't have the money to buy one. So I just walked into the store, and it was just like, you know, one of these like obvious, like that's what's meant to happen here. So I just walked in, and like I look at the cashier, and it's like, I just want to give my guitar, and then like I see this lady, and he's like, oh yeah, you should go talk to that lady over there. And then and you know like tears of joy, you know, like of the moment, and I'm just like giving her this, and we kept in touch for like a few months, like through emails, and like she's telling me like what she was doing, because she was taking care of a few kids, and I mean, just like that moment of like, I actually don't need this, and you know, to know that it went to someone, that it made somebody like so happy, and like is the best feeling you could really have, really. And I did this for like pretty much everything that I had. And then I had like a big garage sale, which was like, it lasted a few days, and in Canada, where I just like gave everything that I had, because I was a woodworker also. I had like so many woodworking tools and big things, you know, so you can't really, it's not easy to carry around. And so, you know, in a spirit of getting lighter, like, and that's also where I understood like all of these things were actually weighing me down, because, you know, I had all these beautiful things, and I could do a lot of things, but then at the same time, they were kind of tying me down to, you know, I needed to find a place for them. I needed to, you know, because my life was very, starting to be very nomadic at that point. So, and so, just seeing everybody come and just like giving them away my things was like, and they were so happy, and I was like so happy for like days on end. So that was like, great moment. So, you know, when we speak of generosity, when we speak of the virtues, we're actually speaking of making our minds lighter and uplifted. That's all it means, really. That's the basic denominator behind all of it. And what is wise living or livelihood?
Follow the awakening.
Yes. And shapes life by wise modes of living. Yes, so a follower of the awakened ones abandons unwise modes of living and shapes life by wise modes of living. Clear as mud. So there's just a few things that the Buddha recommended not to do, like getting into like making poisons and like human trafficking and things like that. You know, like common sense things. I don't think there's anybody here doing that. So great, well done. Or like weapons is another one kind of thing. Just, you know, I think the common understanding here is just to know that the more wholesome and beneficial to everybody else your work is, the better it is. That's all it means. And to stay away from just like really coarse, you know, stuff. He also discouraged making and selling drugs and alcohol. So that's, I know some people who actually stopped like being bartenders because they felt like it just wasn't just in line with their virtues anymore. So okay, so we got from the realm of the mind, of the intention, and so this is what we've been here doing on retreat, working at the level of the mind, at the level of intention. Then we go into speech, a little bit coarser. Then we go into actions, the third field, and then all of our livelihood, job, employment, everything that we do in life, which is the big, and this is the big ecosystem here. And the field is great. It's great to know, but there's not much action here, and this is where we are headed now. And what is wise practice or right effort? That is, well, that's going to be a little bit challenging for us to all kind of do a call and response. As of yet unarisen, unfavorable, unwholesome states of mind, one develops the desire not to give rise to them. Through dedicated practice, continually devoting one's mind to it, one undertakes this and makes an effort in that direction. So the first one is to not give rise or to protect. Usually it's seen as guarding or protecting ourselves against unwholesome states. So that's the first of the right efforts. Then we have, as for already arisen unfavorable unwholesome states, one develops the desire to let them go. And that's the more active part. So in the first, right effort is divided into two. One is about unwholesome states and the other one is about wholesome states. And in the first, well, we just spoke about the virtues. The virtues are also there to help us protect ourselves from these unwholesome states. So the first right effort is very much talking about what we just covered, the virtues, so that we can actually protect ourselves. But once we've done that, you know, or we're protecting ourselves through that, then really the main aspect is to let go of unwholesome states, right? And I like to see the virtues as like the fence around our garden. It's like protecting what we're growing, really. And as for yet unarisen wholesome states of mind, one develops the desire to give rise to them. Through dedicated practice, continually devoting one's mind to it, one undertakes this and makes an effort in that direction. And now here we have really, you know, bringing up any of these wholesome states. And so loving kindness, this is what you've been doing all this time. Here we have the wholesome states, the loving kindness, whatever vehicle of awareness that you've used to uplift your mind. We have the smiling also. Wouldn't that fall in there? And the relaxed step would be where? abandoning, letting go of unwholesome states. And how does that work? How does relaxing, how is it about abandoning unwholesome states?
Relaxing is letting go of the tension.
Yes. Relaxing is letting go of the tension. Yeah. And the tension comes because? Wanting, yeah. And these distractions or unwholesome states manifest as tension. The body and the mind are very close together. And when we relax the body, knowing that this was a little bit of tanha coming into the mind, then we actually let go of the tanha. So the third noble truth is applied also. Very good. Just so you know, because for me I found it really important to understand that what I was practicing was this, because it seems quite important. And the last one, as for already present wholesome states, one develops the desire to sustain them for their increase, growth, maturation, development through dedicated practice, continually devoting one's mind to it. One undertakes this and makes an effort in that direction. So whatever has been cultivated or whatever is brought up, it's not just to, like we were saying, we experience these wholesome states in regular life all the time, but we actually don't sustain them. So that's what the difference is here, is that we actually bring them up purposefully, and then we stay there. We stay with them and we try to make more of them. You know, I rarely speak of these 4 aspects of right effort because it's a bit chunky. It's a bit bulky. It's got a lot of, you know, it's a big thing. I like to boil it down to 2 things: abandoning unwholesome states, bringing up wholesome ones. That's it. And yes.
I find it amusing that the word chanda
Yes.
appears in all 4
All
aspects
4 of them.
of
Yes.
the right effort.
Yes.
And there's a wholesomeness in actually doing all 4 of these in some sense.
Yes. Very good, Bharat. Are you reading my mind? Because that was the next thing I was going to say. Very good. And so one aspect of right effort is obviously dealing with the wholesomeness and unwholesomeness, like the wholesome states and unwholesome states. But the second aspect of right effort is that effort in itself, that chanda. And that's really what I like to underline here, is that every single step there is chandang janiti. So one brings forth the desire. Interesting. And so what, I don't know about you guys, but what I was told was to remain equanimous, like flat, like completely flat with every single experience or sensations that I was experiencing in my meditation. And to want anything was not good. So when I was reading this and like bringing up this chanda, this desire for wholesome state and this desire to abandon unwholesome state, I was like even more puzzled because I thought, well, my teachers are just telling me like remain equanimous, don't get attached to the joy, and just hang on in there and like, enjoy the pain. And and so I was really, it was really difficult for me to understand this, to be really honest. And I was really happy when I started translating this, because chanda is everywhere in right effort, and there is an action to this path, and this is the action. And so in the Great 40, the Buddha says, there are these 3 components of the path that work together: wise understanding or right view, right effort or wise practice, as I say it here, and right mindfulness or wise presence of mind. And with these three, we use wise discernment or wise understanding to tell between wholesome and unwholesome intention, wholesome and unwholesome speech, wholesome and unwholesome actions, wholesome and unwholesome ways of living. Then we use right effort to abandon unwholesome intention and cultivate wholesome intention, to abandon unwholesome speech and to bring up wholesome speech, to abandon unwholesome action, to bring up wholesome action, to abandon unwholesome ways of living and to bring up wholesome ways of living. With right effort. Right effort is the action verb of the path. And with wise mindfulness or right mindfulness or wise presence of mind or wise awareness, we see this clearly. And so this whole process is brought to you by wise awareness. So wise awareness is like the sponsor of the whole thing. And so this is how the path works. I just think it's really important to know that this right effort is actually what we do. Because for me, in all of my background in the past, I was always told, put your attention here and that's it. And I was never told to develop any wholesome states or abandon anything. It was just like, fix your attention. But clearly the Buddha is explaining something very rich and very organic here, which is very interesting. And what is this wise awareness? I sold the wick. Because I stepped ahead of myself here. This is, monks, one meditates resting one's awareness on the body, knowing it as only body, intent, fully conscious and present, letting go of tensions and distractions. I like to translate it like this, Vinaya loke abhija domanasang means more like letting go of clinging and agitation for the world. The world is, as I said earlier, the world is the senses for the Buddha. When the Buddha speaks of loke, the world, he's actually speaking of the six senses. And so whatever is arising in the six senses, like we saw yesterday in dependent origination, when I said that the four foundations of mindfulness were dependent origination without craving. So this is what he's talking about here. So here we are resting awareness, we're just aware of body, not having any labels about it, particular preferences, opinions, ideas. It's just the body, that's just the way it is. And you let go of the upper chain, the tanha and attachments and habitual tendencies that come upon that. So here you cut all of this at the root by staying here. This is what the Buddha also called the island. And when you see reality like this, you see reality clearly. Yatha bhutang jnana dassana. You're seeing things for what they are. Resting one's awareness on sensations, resting one's awareness on... I'm skipping to the next ones because the mind, and resting one's awareness on mental states, knowing them as only mental states, intent, fully conscious and present, letting go of tensions and distractions. I just like to translate it as tensions and distractions because it's really close to what we've been doing, and it's, in the end, that's what it is really. We could get fancy Pali, but yeah. And so those are the four foundations of mindfulness. Very good. I said it, but I'm just checking. Yes.
Dhamma as a fourth foundation, translated as mental states.
Yeah, it's a tricky one. Yeah, are Dhamma principles, or just Dhamma as, because here you have Dhamma without the long A at the end is like the teaching. It's the way, or what the Buddha taught, the big Dhamma. But Dhamma with long A at the end is actually more like mental state. If you read the Satipatthana Sutta, for example, it's clearly explaining all the Dhamma principles or Dhamma teachings. And so here it even goes to that level where, one sees, for example, as we've been repeating every morning, realizing that these 5 hindrances have been abandoned within, gladness arises. From the arising of gladness, joy arises. From mental joy...
Body becomes calm.
Very good. Calm in body. I like the enthusiasm. And the happy mind. Yeah. So this is not privy to me. This is not only accessible by monks or nuns. It's just the way the mind works. And it's not personal. It's just the way it is. And so when you apply these principles, the mind becomes uplifted, it loses its defilements, and it becomes collected. That's it. It's just a principle. It's not me. I'm not, there's nothing to do with like me being in there, or preferences, or what I think about this. Is just the way it works. And so he says the same thing about the 5 hindrances. The 5 hindrances are not you. And that's something that I've been trying to inject in all of the talks, little bit by little bit, is that the storyline that's running in your mind is not about you. It's just an inclination of the mind. It's a habit of the mind, and it's putting up that story together. And whatever is inside that story, really that story is called restlessness. And there's tension in it, and you can just let it go. You can relax it, and it calms down. It's not like what this person said and what you should have said back and what happened this and that and that. That's just anxiety. That's just restlessness. Or it's just anger. It's not really, when you start to see it like that, it's not really personal. It's just a hindrance. Your mind was clear, you were meditating, you had loving kindness, it was bright, open. And then that thing came and it was like, oh, okay. It's just a hindrance. It's no big deal. And so it's showing you what's in the mind so you can actually release it, let it go, and move on. And so what is wise meditation? This is monks and nuns disengaging oneself from the senses, and letting go of unwholesome mental states, assisted by thinking and imagination. With the joy and happiness born of letting go, one understands and abides the first level of meditation. As thinking and imagining calm down with inner tranquilization, one's mind becoming unified, without thinking and imagination. With joy and happiness born of mental collectedness, one understands and dwells in the second level of meditation. As excited joy calms down and one dwells in steady awareness, present and fully comprehending, still experiencing ease within one's body, a state which the awakened ones describe as steady presence of mind. This is a pleasant abiding. One understands and abides in the third level of meditation. Unattached to pleasant sensations and unsteered by unpleasant ones, as mental excitement and heaviness settle, one's mind is balanced, purified by unmoving presence. one understands and abides in the fourth level of meditation. So we said at the beginning that wise collectedness was about the 7 spokes of the Eightfold Path. And here we have the 4 jhanas, the 4 levels of meditation. And so this is just a breakdown of how the mind becomes collected, what the Buddha actually meant by samadhi. This is just basically an elaboration of how it happens, step by step. That's just the way it is. And if you're wondering where are the 7 factors of enlightenment, or the supports of awakening, which I call them, well, it's all in here. It's all in the jhana sequence. We have first presence of mind, or sati, which is allowing us to choose between states, which is that viveka at the beginning, letting go of the senses, letting go of unwholesome states. That is called Dhamma vichaya. That is investigation, or practicing, choosing, discerning between wholesome states and unwholesome states. And then once that gets going continuously, that is called virya, devotion, energy, effort. We do this continuously, devotedly. And then we have joy arising. The first joy is viveka jang piti sukhang. The second joy comes at the second jhana, which is samadhi jang piti sukhang. And then we have the calming, the maturation, that I like to call it, of joy into a more like a steady ease and happiness, which is sukha, which is more like a whole body experience, calming down. And like the Buddha said, the 7 supports of awakening, they're like the rafters of a peak roof, and they all point to Nibbana. So that's why I call them the supports to awakening, because of that simile. That means that they are all there all the way, even the joy. And so the joy is stronger at the beginning, but as it matures and it goes closer to the end, that's where I changed the translation. I call it more like bliss. Because, you can play with words and you don't have to agree with my translation. That's okay. Everybody can have their own. But for me, that's how I see it. Because I feel like it's more like, joy is more this like, yay. Bliss is more like, in my mind anyways. So that's how I see it. So as we do this process, the joy will cleanse the mind. And then the next is that passaddhi. And passaddhi is, see here we see that the joy calms down. This is that passaddhi, where the body and the mind calm down at the 3rd jhana. And then we have collectedness happening, which is kind of under all of that happening. And then we have the mind becoming very steady. We can call it equanimity. Yeah, it's true, it becomes, or balanced. I like steadiness because steadiness also feeds back into awareness. So when the mind is steady, it's very aware, it's very mindful, it's present, it's there. So it's kind of like this loop, and it's self-feeding. So if you're wondering where the 7 supports of awakening are in this whole path, because it's pretty important, well, they're all there. They're all in that wise collectedness. This is how it happens in the sequence of the jhanas. That took me a while, by the way, to figure out, because I was wondering, where are these 7 factors of enlightenment in the path? Because I really like them, but I don't know where they are. The Buddha's he doesn't have like a section on them. But then I realized, it's just because they're hidden in the jhanas. It's all there. And that sequence we read every morning, it's just basically a shortened version of these 4 jhanas. And so I like to see the field of intention, the mind, wise intention, the field of this wise speech, the field of wise behavior or wise action, and the field of our livelihood as just this beautiful field, because I also like permaculture, and so I like to kind of see it like that. And we have like all the closer, like really important crops close by that we need to, like, we're always in there a little bit, and then we have bigger, long-lasting crops a little further and bigger, and at the end we have like these big kind of like nut trees, and like the ones that take a long time to grow, but you can just leave them there, and they're like the big harvest that take a long time. So it's so that's the livelihood. It's like those big investment, those big blocks in your life, but the more you make them wholesome, they're also part of this whole thing. And I like to see right effort as like the gardener with its little water can and fork. So watering the little wholesome states and digging out the unwholesome ones, pulling them out. And wise awareness is like the sun. Good gardener will know that, your garden's gotta be hit by the sun even and square and everywhere. So that's the 4 foundations of mindfulness, I guess. And then the jhanas are like, the fertilizer. Yeah, so if you want to have a strong garden, you just go get in there and go get that fertilizer, that good NPK for your garden, and which is nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. So go for it. Which are the 7 factors of awakening. Great. And so, okay, so I've been talking for a while, and I'll spare you now. I really like to end this on a short few verses that the Buddha says about the path, because I started the talk saying that the Eightfold Path is like the ultimate vehicle of the mind and the vehicle of our meditation. The Eightfold Path is what you've been practicing here from beginning to end, and this is the meditation. As we said, what is this wise collectedness, this wise samadhi? It's this whole path. And so the Buddha says about this beautiful vehicle, both qualities of faith and discernment, always yoked evenly together, with conscientiousness as the pole, mind as the rope, awareness as its careful driver. The complete body of virtue is the carriage, jhana, its axle, inspiration or energy, the wheels. Steadiness of mind is the even alignment. The whole is covered and draped in contentment. Goodwill and harmlessness, letting go as a third, are its weaponry. Forgiveness is the armor and protection, headed to freedom from slavery. This divine vehicle, unsurpassed, arises from within oneself. With it, the wise leave behind this world, assured of the highest victory. So, sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. May suffering ones be suffering free, and the fear-struck fearless be. May the grieving shed all grief, and may all beings find relief. May all beings share these merits that we have thus acquired for the acquisition of all kinds of happiness. May beings inhabiting space and earth, devas and nagas of mighty powers, share these merits of ours. May they long protect the Buddha's dispensation. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Very good, and have a beautiful evening. And I think, is it Tina at the back? Oh, okay, good, because I can't see. Great. I thought it was you. Okay, good. Welcome back.